All right, here we are at Davos once again. Excellent experience, although we've kind of been in our interview space here for an extended a period of time, so we can't wait to jump outside and mingle and mix a little bit more the rest of today, the remainder of today. But our guest right now, we're very happy to be sitting with. His name is Matthias Ruch. And we'll just get started by letting you give a little bit of an intro on yourself, a little bit of context before we get the conversation going.
Sure, happy to. Thanks for having me.
Of course.
Exciting to be here.
And thanks for hosting us
Of course.
As a media partner for this wonderful house.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's a great location, I guess, and people pass by and step in, so I'm very happy to be here. So my name is Matthias. I am a founder and CEO of CVVC. That stands for Crypto Valley Venture Capital. It says what we do. We are a venture capital company with a plus. That's how we like to say that. So we invest in startups that build based on blockchain technology, the picks and shovels of the space. So if you're in a room full of bankers and somebody says crypto and everybody goes like that, we're the alternative, right? No danger there, right? And on the other hand, we have our own ecosystem business called CV Labs, where we build global blockchain startup hubs. We have one in Zug right now, building one in Africa, looking into Southeast Asia and other European countries. I myself, I've been a founder in the digital startup space since 25 years. I started at over a dozen companies myself, including complete failures, a few successful ones that led me into angel investing, and I stumbled across smart contracts in 2015 that got me into blockchain.
Hey, you got in early.
Well, depends who you ask, right?
It's all relative. Well, you know, you're based in Switzerland. You've been coming to Davos for quite a long time. Would love to understand your perspective on how the conversation has shifted, how the dynamic of sort of the old guard, new guard has sort of intersected and evolved, and where we are today in that evolution.
So, as I was born in Switzerland, right? So born and raised, and of course you know about the World Economic Forum, but until 2017, I would never have gotten an invitation to the World Economic Forum, right? And suddenly that started, you know, and it was all in the context of blockchain. And in order to understand, I think I have to give you some background about Crypto Valley, you know, that term coined for the blockchain, the Swiss blockchain ecosystem that was coined around 2017. And what you have to know probably is, and a lot of people in the US don't know, that Switzerland has the largest concentration of blockchain companies in the world. It's over 1,200 companies that are based out of Switzerland. It's over 6,000 people working in that sector in Switzerland, right? And the most staggering number is the market cap of the companies based out of Switzerland is over $500 billion USD.
No.
Of course, there's the Ethereum Foundation in there, second largest blockchain, right? And that's also the reason why we had this growth in Switzerland. So in 2013, Vitalik Buterin and his friends, they were looking for a jurisdiction where they could set up shop basically for, you know, what we know now is Ethereum. And of course, nobody would understand what that is, right? Mm-hmm. So they were literally traveling to Singapore, to Switzerland, initially because of tax reasons, right? And they chose Zug, a tiny, small town in Switzerland. And what happened then was, you know, a lot of projects wanted to recreate the success of that very initial crowdfunding event through crypto. And hundreds, if not thousands, of companies came to Switzerland. They were literally knocking at our doors. We were an investor consultant for the startup space there, asking, is this Crypto Valley? You know, and they wanted to start right now, set up shop, conduct ICOs, you know, the initial coin offerings at the time. So that was the big thing. And everybody was suddenly talking about Davos because that's the place where the global elite meets. So the blockchain community has to be up there. And I think it started in 2018, if I'm not mistaken, where if you would walk along the promenade, the main street here in Davos, you would see Microsoft, you would see, you know, the big names, maybe Google, Facebook, of course. And there was one blockchain hub. I think it was run by a Ukrainian community, if I'm not mistaken. And that's it, you know. But the energy, all the people were gathering around that. You could say that's something.
That was the cool kid's house.
That was the cool kid's house, you know. And then, of course, everybody was hooked up. And 2019, it was, even bigger. You could see more hubs. And the stronger the industry grew, the more players you would see. And then the last time it was on site was 2020 in January. It was a winter edition, right? We hosted 7 events during that week here. That's like an off-site thing. It's not the official World Economic Forum. It was pre-pandemic, right? We even had a professor from Wuhan flying in for our Chinese roundtable.
Oh, wow.
So we were probably one of that spreader events.
Oh, man.
So you gave us a foundation of kind of how Crypto Valley got started and how it's become such a powerful force. Can you tell us a little bit more about the nitty-gritty of the day-to-day of being involved in Crypto Valley, major players, how people engage and interact, how much is concentrated in Zook and what it's like to be there, the transition there. I'd love to dive a little bit deeper on how things are.
Happy to do so. So Zook is really the center of it, right? But I think to understand why this is a successful hub, let me explain what we identified as the 4 pillars of a successful ecosystem, like the Silicon Valley, right? So the term is also coined based on Silicon Valley, of course, right? So if you have talent, if you have the founders, the pioneers, normally capital follows. So these are the 2 first pillars. Happened massively with the ICO craze, right? Everybody came there, wanted to set up shop, and money followed, right? Billions went into that, into these ICOs in Switzerland back in the days. But then you need infrastructure, and with infrastructure, it's not just physical co-working spaces and stuff like that, but you also need service providers. You need academia. You really need an ecosystem that can cater to the needs of these startups, and that was evolving. You had expertise, lawyers that would set up these foundations and everything, and that started growing. And what you then need, and I think that's very important, is you need the support of the government and the regulatory framework. And that's what brought all these startups to Switzerland. And I think that's still the case why a lot of these startups come to Switzerland. Probably the most sustainable framework that we have. It was introduced last year. I can give you an example. It's basically 3 main aspects. We have the term token actually, in the civil code. So when we started 5 years ago, people told us, you're not changing the civil code. We change that like every 10 or 20 years. And we said, well, let's try anyways, right? So it's in a very small article in the civil code. What that means is, in Switzerland, you can have your shares, your digital shares, on a digital ledger, on a blockchain. So there's no wrapper, it's enough. You don't have to have a legacy version of your shareholders, right, of your shares.
I find the Swiss culture, just being here for the last week and a half, fascinating, between this sort of real appreciation of history and tradition and respect for powerful disruptive innovation. Like, even the bathrooms, the public bathrooms, are radically different than what we have in the United States.
Yeah, I mean,
right?
if you look at Switzerland, a country without any resources, natural resources, you have to be open. So small, 8 million people, right?
You have to innovate.
Or you have to let people in with great ideas, So it's unlikely that the next Elon Musk is just the village next door, right? So you have to have an open-minded attitude when it comes to business. And I think that's the case also when you look at the history of Switzerland after industrialization and everything. And that's also what I think led to that growth of the ecosystem. We like to say we have decentralization in our DNA, right?
There you go.
What interesting factor there too. I mean, a theme, I think, is just sort of like a very kind of quiet, rational perspective as well, which means that if there's something disruptive, but it makes sense, right? Just because it's new, if it makes sense, like, people are willing to accept it. Like, give me the reasonable argument and we'll implement it.
It was a struggle, to be honest, right? So what we did is we founded the Swiss Blockchain Federation, which is a public-private partnership with the government to kind of increase the attractivity and competitiveness of Switzerland as a hub, right? So we were really working with the parliamentarians. So back 2017, we were organizing these dinners or lunches with the members of the parliament, and it would take 30 seconds, and you would talk about terrorism financing through Bitcoin and darknet. So that was the initial narrative, right? But that changed over time, and now you can have a really fruitful discussion about the potential of the technology.
Well, let's talk about that potential more. You made an exciting announcement earlier today about a new fund that you've created to support innovation in Africa around Web3. But to step back even further from that, you're living and breathing this ecosystem. You've been immersed in it. And what do you think of the problems that Web3 technology can solve? And maybe what are some of the ones it can't solve? And how are those conversations sort of evolving this week and with this integration of sort of the social political climate, and the technologists? So I'm really curious about that and what your hopes and aspirations are for this new fund.
Thank you for that. So we have to be very clear. What's driving adoption in our space currently is the speculative part of blockchain, the cryptocurrencies, right? The investing that everybody can do, right? I personally find it the boring part, but it's still driving what's happening out there.
Would you still say it's a bit of a mania at this point?
It's an absolute mania.
Yeah.
It's an absolute mania. Well, that's my opinion.
Let's call a spade a spade.
But it's driving and it's creating innovation, and that's good. That you need regulation will kick in anyways, right? So let's drive this through innovation, and also being born in a first world country, we don't have any problems, right? No, everybody has access to finance. Assurance is there.
Clean
if you
water.
buy a house, it's yours. All of that, right? So the use cases of blockchain, they do much more cater to the needs of countries like the ones in Africa, right, or Southeast Asia, where you don't have these things, where you're not banked, for example, right? So you just don't have access to the financial system, and it's massive, the amount of people that don't have access to the financial system. Assurance, right? Land registry. We have a startup that is out of Ghana, House of Africa, that's called, where they are putting the land registry on a blockchain, right? And there you have the structure of Ghana is you also have regions, right? In Switzerland we have the cantons, they have it as well. So you have a national registry, you have a communal registry or a cantonal registry, and then even villages have their own registry. So you might end up with 3 different registries, right? So, and maybe at some point someone says, no, that's the one that's accurate, right? And you might not be in there, right? So what they're trying to create is that one digital ledger-based registry, so you can have assurance for your, land and own a house.
Yeah, it's a principle that I find fascinating, and it lends itself to a lot of optimism. It's his ability to leapfrog, right? I mean, we've seen it with the evolution of cell phones and the internet, that developing countries, which again, there's been literature around the fact that they're not developing anymore. The countries that we thought were developing countries like 10, 20 years ago, like they're doing pretty good. You give somebody a cell phone and the internet, and all of a sudden they get on a more level playing field. And what you're bringing to the equation here is it's the infrastructure problem. I don't have a courthouse or like a town, building with documents and all these stuff. You don't need it anymore. You have a decentralized ledger. We could just drop it right into that culture, and you can put everything on it, and you can leapfrog over that antiquated building, and you don't even have to make the transition, right, from the antiquated building and all those documents onto the blockchain. It's fascinating.
And you access it through your smartphone, or even first generation phones. It's also possible, and you cannot tamper with the data. It's there. It's immutable, right? And I think that's the sort of use cases that really cater to the needs of Africa, right? And what we're doing, so we cannot solve all these problems, right? We're just facilitating, right? So that's why we have this ecosystem approach. You need to bring the people together. You need to get the developers to the corporates that need the solutions. You need to bring technology there, right? To be honest, not all of Africa has broadband access, right? So that's also a problem that needs to be solved. So
you published a new report on Africa, and you shared a couple of those statistics that I thought were quite powerful. What was one sort of part of that report that even caught you by surprise in terms of what the numbers told? And it always goes back to the numbers, right?
So we could see and feel our journey with Africa started in 2018, where we would go together with the Swiss government kind of on a fact-finding mission, right? And we were actually in 2018 at the stock exchange in Joburg, which has some symbolic message, right? You are talking about blockchain at the stock exchange that could potentially disrupt the way people trade, right? So that was pretty interesting. So the financial sector was there, and it was a great discussion. And the feedback, it resonates so much with people, and you could feel that energy, right? So throughout the journey since 2018, we could see and feel that there's something happening and it's growing fast. But now seeing the numbers, it was really like, wow,
So what are some of those numbers?
So just venture capital has more than doubled. Global spending venture capital has more than doubled last year, right?
Wow.
But it's even more so within the blockchain sector, right? We don't have great data from 2020, so we cannot really say. But from Q1 2020 to Q1 2021, it's over 1,100% increase in funding into blockchain. Right?
That's really incredible. So just to wrap up, and I know there's a lot of people you have to meet here. You're hosting, and don't want to take you away from that. What's the name of the new fund called, and the sort of symbolism behind the name?
I think it's called Africa Early Stage Blockchain Fund.
Okay.
Very
I thought it had I thought that I saw some words on the screen.
Kanako, you mean?
Kanako, yeah.
That is Sesotho. That's one of the languages spoken in South Africa. It stands for "It's Time," and for us, it's only the beginning.
It's beautiful. And how can folks stay in touch with you and learn more about your fund and all the exciting projects that you're working on?
We're very approachable, right? So our CV Labs team is on many events all over the globe. We're on LinkedIn, on our website, cvvc.com, cvlabs.com. Just get in touch with us.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Thanks.
Been great.
Thank you.